Welcome to the Pool Nation Podcast, where it's all pool talk. And we ain't talking about netting and jetting or splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. We talk about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. Now let's welcome your host, with over a decade of industry insider experience and still the reigning champion of Marco Polo, Edgar De Jesus, and his co-host, John JJ Flawless, the fastest netter in the West, and Zac the Pool Boy Nicholas.
Welcome, everyone, to the Pool Nation Live podcast with myself, your host, Edgar De Jesus. And yes, I am the reigning champion of Marco Polo, along with John, JJ Flawless, the fastest netter in the West, and the famous Zac, the Pool Boy Nicholas. Every month, we have the pleasure of having Bob Lowry join us on our podcast to answer questions that are sent from you pool guys and pool girls out there. And this is that week. So a big welcome to Bob. For those of you that know Bob, you know he's a legend in our industry. For those of you that are new into the pool industry, Bob has written 21 books on pool water chemistry, and even the manuals that IPSA uses were written by Bob. He is also the founder of the Pool Chemistry Training Institute. You can visit his site at pcti.online. We'll talk about that in today's podcast. I want to welcome everyone to the live podcast, the podcast where it's all pool talk, and we ain't talking about netting and jetting or splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. And yes, we will talk about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. But before we get started today, I want to thank our sponsors for this podcast, the Ultimate Pool Tools, the SPPA, and the PoolmanUniversity.com. We want to thank them for their continued support. Zac, good morning.
Well, happy Friday, everyone. I got to say, I didn't know if I was going to make it on time. I had to catch a ride to the studio, and then Leslie drove off with my coffee in her car, so I went into full freaking panic mode and had to scramble to get that done. But I made it here, and I've got my coffee, so I'm all good, and I'm ready to get some questions answered by Bob today.
Wait, so did your wife turn around and bring the coffee back?
Oh, yeah, like we were talking, I was talking with y'all, and I just dropped, and I called her, and I was like, 911 emergency, you have my coffee in the car, like you have to come back now. And she did, so thank you.
You know what, dude? Leslie, you are definitely a keeper if you're bringing that man his coffee back. That's a keeper right there, Zac.
Yes, she is.
Absolutely.
So, John, good morning.
Good morning. How we doing?
You doing?
I'm doing okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, fantastic. So look, I started off my morning really, really great. So I'm going to tell a real quick story. And
wait, John, can I interrupt you for just a second?
Absolutely.
Somebody just typed in here and says, "Thanks for the Crocs, John. I'm so happy you sent them."
Oh,
that was Leslie.
You're very, very welcome. Send me your size, Leslie, and I'll definitely send you a pair also. I think Crocs are the way to go.
I think she's very happy that you sent them to Zac, because I don't think Zac takes them off anymore.
No, I don't.
Oh, no, don't do that. You'll feel obligated to have to wear them, right, Leslie?
Oh, my gosh. So, sorry, John, I just kind of had to interrupt there, and that was funny.
So, anyway, today was great. I woke up feeling kind of good. I went to bed a little early last night because when I got home, I was just exhausted. And so I got a good amount of sleep and going through my day, my morning routine. And I get a text message from a friend of mine, a good buddy of mine. I'm not going to say his name because I'm going to kind of blast him a little bit here on the airwaves. So, our relationship, our friendship started about, I don't know, at least about 2 years ago. We had a good heart-to-heart conversation, and we were talking about the things that we talk about all the time on our podcast, on our lives, about rates, about knowing your value, about increasing them, charging the right rate, being the premier pool service. And ever since we had that conversation, he kind of just started out in the business at that time. He completely changed his business model, and he's turned into quite the machine, right? And he's done an amazing job building his business and increasing his rates, where his rates have literally like doubled, tripled from where they were when we first had our conversation. And I've had the pleasure to see him grow and just become, just like I said, a machine, just become a great full service company and a great guy doing what he's doing. And I get a text message from him this morning, and I always get text messages from him. I try helping him out whenever I possibly can, or for us just to shoot the crap. But he sends me a message and he goes, I have here, let me get the exact message. And he tells me, I have a 38,000 gallon pool, is what he tells me. I have a 38,000 gallon pool, motorized cover, only 5 years old, not much debris. What are you charging? So it took everything in my being not to reach through the phone and just like, oh, what the hell are you talking about, right? And I said, And I go, okay. And I sent him a message back, and I said, you sound like one of the 4 or 5 phone calls I get a day, or a Yelp message I get a day from a customer that goes, I have a 15 by 25 pool, saltwater pool. What's your charge? And it's just like, the whole thing is, I tell him, I go, are you not listening anymore? When we talk about this, it's like, you absolutely cannot, just quote prices over the phone, or just be able to have 1 or 2 different details and be able to give a price. So I gave him a bunch of crap today, and I was telling him, I go, look, dude, I cannot believe you sent me that text message. He's, I know, you're right. And it just goes down to it again. Look, when we do these prices, or when we talk to clients or talk to customers, there's so much more involved when we're quoting prices, as far as like the backyard, who's using the pool, stuff like that. So to my friend out there, go back and listen to the 50 different episodes that we had about quoting prices and what we should be charging. Anyways, that's my morning story.
Your morning start?
Yeah, I hope I embarrassed him just a little bit. He knows who he is. He'll eventually listen to this and he'll know who he is.
All right.
Well, I don't know. I think my response would probably be, we don't charge by the gallon.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't matter. It's how much work we have to do to take care of the thing.
Exactly, right? What is it going to take? I mean, I don't know. You're asking, what am I going to charge? I don't know what to charge. 38,000. Okay, it has this and that and how much debris. So anyways, real funny.
Well, and you also have to think about bather loads, because a lot of times you get into a residential pool, if they get above 25 or 30,000 gallons, they may have actually a commercial pool there instead of a residential pool. I went out on a call one time in Nevada, and the guy said, I don't know what's wrong with my pool. And, we kept checking on it. I said, wow, these are up, this is down, whatever. And I said, well, how long does the chlorine last? He said, well, on Saturdays, it doesn't last very long. I said, how come? He said, well, we have 32 of the neighbor kids get in on Saturday morning. And I was like, oh, well, gee, imagine that. You really have a commercial pool, and you need to set up an ORP controller on it and have this thing start dispensing stuff. You can't ask a guy to come out once a week to take care of that.
Zach had one this week, right, Zach? That was, 100,000 gallons?
Yeah, and I'm not clear if he was saying, he said need to turn over 100,000 gallons worth of water. And so we never really got farther than the first couple of emails, but he had sent this request. He needed all this, programming done and things looked at and repairs done. He sent this schematic that he had drawn out of his equipment pad. And I took one look at it, and he was very nice and everything, but I was just like, no, we can't, we don't have the capacity for that. Getting lights to sync up and equipment to sync up and features to sync up. It wasn't for maintenance, it's for repairs. But, we were real brutally honest and just said, we appreciate you considering us, but at this time we can't take on a project like that. And it was funny because his response was like, wow, I really respect that. And I'll definitely refer you guys to all my friends because you were just honest about it right up front. And so it was a pretty cool situation. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a 100,000 gallon pool.
That's a crazy one. That's a huge one.
Yeah. Welcome to Texas.
No kidding, huh?
Yeah. Everything's
Zach.
bigger in Texas, right?
They ain't lying.
Hey, Zach, did you listen to that Instagram Live on Wednesday?
Yeah, I did, and
Here we go.
it took a quick turn there, and but I was having a good time just reading all of those comments.
It was, it was what a crowd out there kind of moment. It was brutal. And I'm going to have to say, I haven't laughed that hard in a long time, but that conversation kind of went left really quick, huh, John?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, thinking about it right now, I think it was a setup, because Zach was going to be doing it. And then Zach goes, oh, no, John, hey, you know what? You take this one. And then all of a sudden, then Zach's on the comments. He's still on the live, but he's typing and he's watching everything unfold. I think I was set up this Wednesday.
You were set up.
Thanks, Zach. Love you.
Bob, let me give you a little background on this thing. We jump on the live, on the Instagram Live, John and I, and we're kind of having the conversation. And I think everybody's getting really comfortable with us, John, and the lives, and kind of everybody's kind of coming to their own. So everybody's chatting and talking and asking great questions. And there's, this great flow. And then, Bob, this thing just took a turn of its own. Like, we're having this conversation, and all of a sudden they just laid into John. And so,
Wow.
You know what? I'll tell you what. Let me give you a little piece of how that went down. I want you to listen to this. Watch. Listen how it turned really quick.
My face doesn't go with my voice. Oh, what the hell? Oh. All right, now look, we got to stop right now.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
How's my face supposed to sound?
At first they call you a boomer, and now they're telling you that your face is it. You know what it is, John? Your voice is very deep and kind of, so it's like you expect to kind of catch this older guy doing this deeper voice kind of thing.
I get it. See, it's a compliment. He sounds really old. He looks really handsome, and he's young. I get it.
Anyways, guys.
Godzilla's voice with a Care Bear face.
Oh. Wow.
Nice.
Oh man, this crowd today is on fire.
Did you see that, Bob? Did you see how that just took a left turn, or a right turn, whatever you want to call it? It just went south quick.
Oh my God.
It really did. Wow.
So we're talking now to the gentleman with the Godzilla voice, but the Care Fair face. Oh my God, John, what a story. The one thing I'm going to have to say for you guys listeners out there, and you're listening, and probably will kind of catch this on the little bit of the podcast, we have a little construction going on over on Bob's side. So if you hear a little bit of that, please forgive us, but not a big deal. We'll kind of keep moving forward from there. But anyways, Bob, they just kind of jumped in on John, and I tried to focus John for 15 minutes to start that Instagram Live, and I just couldn't focus.
Yeah, we had a great time. That was fun.
And then you're getting crap for trying to focus. Like you can flip the light switch from all the ripping right back into business straight to it.
Yeah. It was quite the experience. And forever the Care Bear.
Forever the Care Bear. There we go.
And Wheezy.
And Wheezy. For those of you listening, I was laughing so hard and wheezing, so they called me Wheezy from Toy Story. So, anyways, all right, Bob, let's get started with this podcast. And one of the things that I wanted to do is really quick have you talk about the trainings that you have coming up, so the listeners know what those dates are that are coming up.
We have one on May 1st. Oh, let's see. That one is live, I think, in Torrance, California. And then we have one on May 15th. I will not be teaching either one of those, but we do have two upcoming classes. And I'm just verifying right now. May 1st is Rob Stewart, and it's virtual. And March the 15th, sorry, I said Torrance, and it's in Thousand Oaks, California on May the 15th at 8 o'clock in the morning local time. And that will be given by Michael Thorne, who lives out there, and he likes to give live classes, and they have a way that you can social distance out there. So sometimes live classes are better than virtual ones. So if you're in that area and looking for a class, that's a good one.
We have one that I wanted to talk about really quick before we jump into our podcast, and that is the financial training that we do. And we have a class that's coming up on the 15th of May. And just to kind of go through it really quick, what we've done, guys, is we've put a business side training class together that focuses on 5 metrics that we've created. And one of them is going to be your cost of cleaning. And a lot of that tells you exactly what your cost of cleaning is before you even get to the pool. We also have the average cost of service, which really breaks everything down. As you enter your numbers into this training class, the software is going to completely break everything out for you and is going to tell you exactly what your cost is for just the service side of your business. And so really the goal of that is so that you have a good connection between the income of that service and the cost of that service so that you're able to quote the right rates. We talk about average profit per pool. And what we do is we kind of talk about how your rate is going to be so important into increasing your bottom line. We have now included a part for repair profit and profit percentage. So as you enter your income and your expenses that are tied in directly into your repairs, it's going to give you your income, your expenses, your profit percentage. So now what happens is you get your business and it breaks it down into 2. So now you have your service side as one metric, you have your repairs as a different metric. And then one of the other ones that we've created is what we call the CED. And that is the cents for every dollar. And basically that metric tells you for every dollar that comes in, how much of that dollar you get to keep. So for every dollar, do you get to keep 28 cents, 50 cents, whatever that number is. You know, our goal all along has been to create a tool that by the time that you're done with the training and you've plugged in the numbers, you actually have 100% pulse of your business and you know how financially well your business is doing or how financially poor. The goal is you do it, and by the time that you're done with the class, you have all those numbers, you have all that data, not create a training class where you have to, kind of get the basics of it and then go do it on your own. So there's a couple different things that we cover in the training, and we talk about business types, we talk about the metrics, we talk about the common reasons why small businesses fail. We talk about insurance, what to look for. We talk about billing software. Guys, I'm trying to go really quick here so that we can kind of get into the podcast for today. But we talk about the billing software, how to set it up so that it helps your business grow, how it deals with your cash flow. And we have had people that have taken the class and had some cash flow issues, and they've made some adjustments with their billing software, and that's kind of solved that issue. And then what we do is we talk about the different terms in accounting in preparation for a full profit and loss exercise that you do. You enter your numbers, you will create a profit and loss. And then what happens is we actually do a P&L review so that you see how easy that is and then how important that tool is going to be to your business and to the success of your business. So if you want to take a look at that class is on the 15th. You can go to poolnation.online, or you can go to the poolnationpodcast.com, and up at the top, there's a button. Click there and you can register for the class. It is a paid class, but it is a great class. So there's ours. And now let's get started with this podcast. Bob, first question. Bob always says hi from Lima, Peru. How did Bob end up living in Lima, Peru?
Wow. Okay. Well, if you got a couple of minutes, I'll tell you how I got here. So, as most of you know, I'm an analytical chemist, and that's my main love of life is chemistry. And so, around 2009 or so, in those days, I got in a lot of periodicals, magazines with technical stuff in it, and SciTech and Chem this and Chem that kind of magazines. And I used to leaf through them at night while the TV was on and just kind of see what was interesting in water treatment or whatever. And I ran across an article that talked about the computing equipment necessary to make these new, at the time, these new MMORPGs, they're called, which are multiplayer role-playing games, and they can have as many as 4 or 5 million people playing this game at once. And it looks like you're in a movie. Most of you have heard of World of Warcraft or Dungeons and Dragons on the computer that you can play. And those are those kinds of games. And I was looking at the computing ability, or what was needed to do that. And I thought, wow, those are kind of interesting. And the next day I went down to my lab and started playing, looking around at those games. And I signed up and started playing a couple of them. Well, I got hooked on one that was called Decaron. And I became a warrior in the game and started, killing monsters and things like that. And every time you kill a monster, you get better weapons or shields or protection or more power or something. And so then you can go to the next level and the next level and so on. And after a couple of weeks, I got to the point where I was at level 50. And in this game, you could go to level 190 and then get reborn and do 190 again. And you could actually get 4 reborns and go to 190. And so I got to level 50 and I got to this place where I was trying to kill this monster, and I'd battle it for 15 or 20 minutes, and ultimately it would kill me. And I'd go back to the starting point and start over. And it was kind of frustrating. But the games want you to spend money to buy better weapons. And I didn't want to spend any money, so I kept getting killed. And I was kind of frustrated, but I still didn't want to spend any money. So I went back to the town where everybody can chat by typing. And I asked this other person that was sitting there, I said, can you help me go kill this monster? And this is the common thing to do in these games, but I didn't know it. So this other person said, yeah, sure. And we walked down the street and this monster roared its head. And this other person went, is that the monster? And I said, yeah. And this other person went doink and it killed it. And I was like, what? How did you do that? And she said, well, I just have this weapon that kills them pretty good. And I go, well, that's cool. And so the rest of the night, I went up to about 120, level 120 by the end of that night. And the next night we met again, and I went to level like 150. And I thought, wow, this is cool. And eventually I said, well, I know there's like 500,000 people right now playing this game. Are you a boy or a girl? And she was like, I'm a girl. I said, okay. And it was like, where are you? And she said, well, I don't want to tell you that. And I said, okay. So I thought maybe I was playing with like a 9-year-old boy in China. Eventually we kept talking back and forth. And as stalkers are in these games. And so women especially are nervous about giving out any information. So eventually, we gained some trust in each other and revealed our real names and our real ages, and eventually swapped pictures and got on a video and thought everything was cool and we were cool friends. And I said, this is really great. This is fun stuff. And this started in February, and around first part of May, I said, I'd kind of like to see you. And where are you? Are you going to tell me now? And she said, well, I'm in Lehman. I said, really? Ohio? And she said, no, South America. She said, I'm in Peru. I was like, oh, wow, that's a little farther than I was thinking. And so I said, well, I'd still like to see you. So I arranged to come down here to Peru in May. And I met her. We spent a fantastic week together. At the end of a week, we had fallen in love so greatly that I asked her to marry me. And she said yes. And I went back home and I said, well, it's going to take me about 6 months to clear up all of my affairs here, and I'll be there. And as it turned out, I was able to clear up my affairs in about a month. And I called her and said, I'm going to send you some money, go rent this apartment. And she went out and rented an apartment. And in July, which was only February to July, I moved to Peru. And we got married. And I have lived here now for 10 years. And I've still been able to be a consultant and take care of all my clients and write books and all kinds of stuff since I moved here. But I moved here in 2010. My wife didn't speak a word of English I didn't speak a word of Spanish when I got here. And so I kind of had to learn Spanish while I was trying to learn everything else. Nothing looked the same, as you can imagine. They don't have Gillette razors here. They don't have Kleenex here. They don't have anything that you have in the U.S. I was kind of like, what do I do? and I couldn't talk to anybody except my wife. So it was kind of a demanding experience, but well worth it. And I also have to give you one quick note. I suffered with migraine headaches for 40 years while I was in the United States. And as an analyst, I kept looking for the answer to cure them and never found it. And after I came here and spent a week with my wife, or my now wife, with Sylvia, I went back to the U.S. And since then, I have never had another migraine headache. And that is totally incredible. But it has been a real ride. And for the first time in my life, I let my heart tell me what to do instead of my analytical mind. And my analytical mind was screaming at me, "You're crazy, you're an idiot, don't do this." And my heart was saying, "You deserve some happiness in your life, go for it." And so I decided to let my heart take over, and I went for it, and I moved here.
Wow.
What a freaking great story. Oh, my God.
Yes.
Seriously.
There's a lot of things to this story. First of all, Bob, I totally get it. You're a complete analytical guy. So you're telling this story, and I'm like, no, he can't. He's not going to go. And then the other thing, John and Zac, is just, I never thought I would hear him say, well, I was playing this game and I was leveling up and I was reborn and I was you do this thing on this video game.
That's so awesome.
You and Leslie could talk all night about that stuff.
Oh my God, what a great story.
And as it turns out, yesterday my new gaming PC was delivered to me. And I just bought a new i7 Generation 10 processor with an RTX 3070 video card with 12 gigabytes of RAM on the card. And it's a killer with a 2 terabyte SSD and a 1 terabyte SSD. It's just a killer computer. And I just plugged it in yesterday for the first time. And I also got a 32-inch curved 4K monitor to go with it. So I'm ready to play games again.
We'll have to get a Pool Nation clan going, Bob. Get on there.
Well, I'm not so sure I want to play War of Worlds, but we're looking for some new games. The games that we played was called Decaron, and it was starting to get old when I first played it. And the predecessor to Decaron was called Two Moons, and it was popular back even before 2000. That game is pretty old and it's never really been refreshed. But so we're going to try some new games out that I can use. We can use our graphics cards and stuff like that. And I bought Sylvia a brand new laptop with an i7 Generation 9 in it with a 3060 video card too. So we both got 2 new computers and we're all set to go gaming again.
Oh my God, this is a great story, guys. So now we get the other side of Bob. Not only is he a complete chemist, but he's
around and say analytical chemist. I have another side which we've never ever talked about, but some of you know that I was in the Army, and in the Army I was in the Special Forces, and I was a Green Beret sniper in Vietnam, and that was my other superpower, and I was in Vietnam in 1965 and 1966, and I was a sniper and I was a Green Beret, and yes, I do have a Purple Heart. So at any rate, those are stories for another day, another time, or maybe never, I'm not sure, but that's another side of me.
Oh my God, what a great story. What a great story. I think, Zac, is Leslie big time into gaming? Because I kind of see her typing on here and you kind of get the feel that she's into it.
Yes, When we have time, we both get into it. But she went through, during the pandemic, she went through a phase. I was a little worried about her. And she'd be up at like 3 a.m. because the kids were still asleep, and she'd be out there gaming it up, playing her game, leveling up, and doing all that stuff. I'm like, hey, are you okay? Like, do you want to talk about this?
No, she's putting on here. She spent so much time of my life on that game. What game is that? Is that the same game that Bob's talking about? Leslie, send us a message on here. But Bob, what a great story. I never in 1,000 years would have thought that you were a gamer. And then Zac, we could say that he basically did the online dating thing.
Dude, that's so cool.
Yes.
Yeah, but it wasn't, I didn't actually meet her in an online dating or chat room. I met her playing a game that 500,000 other people were playing at the same time. And we just accidentally ran into each other.
What are the odds of that? What a great story.
Have to be astronomical.
What?
As I said, I could have been playing with a boy in China. Who knows? or a troll in New York.
Oh, my God. That's awesome. What a great story. Guys, now you know how Bob ended up in Lima, Peru. So there's that question. Great one. All right, Bob. So let's jump into some water chemistry here. And my next question is going to be
water chemistry.
All right. I would like to know what each individual does as far as startup methods. I particularly have a hard time with darker plaster pools as scale loves to form here in South Florida with our high pH tap water and super low calcium levels. I hear a lot of companies, they will focus on only pH around 7 to 6.5 for 14 days for maximum aggregate exposure. So I asked him if it was regular plaster, and he said yes. Florida stucco azure, Hawaiian blue, SGM Tahoe blue, and dark plaster like Lagoon, which is almost black. So he kind of has a struggle with those dark bottom startups. Bob, can you walk him through what you would do for that type of startup, the dark bottom plaster? So if Bob's a pool guy, how are you going to go hit that startup?
I'm not such a great guy on startups. And a part of the reason is that there's so many different kinds of finishes now that it's been hard for me to kind of catch up on the finishes. But nonetheless, water chemistry is water chemistry. And there's pretty much only 5 methods out there to do a startup. And you can eliminate a couple of them from the standpoint, one, just how much trouble it might be, and another one that it uses a whole lot of acid in the beginning. And I think that either of those kinds of methods is probably something that a service tech can't really do, because he can't come back that often, can't come back even multiple times in a day to take care of a pool, to get it started up. And that seems to be the problem that we have, is guys want to come out to a new pool once a day and take care of whatever needs it, and then come back the next day. And it may be necessary to visit the pool twice or 3 times, at least in the first day or two. So there is that to consider. And also, there are 2 methods. I guess we can talk brand names or styles or whatever, but there is one from On Balance, and there is one from Orenda. And both of those startup methods use a tank or a barrel that you put beside the pool and run the fill water through the barrel to attain some alkalinity on it, or carbonate on its way into the pool. And those methods work if you follow their method and do what they say. And in fact, the NPC, which is from the National Plasters Council, they have a startup method. And that startup method works very well too if you follow it. The problem is that you want to stray away from that, or you think you know better than they do, and so you improvise. And when you do, it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. I believe that there are startup methods that all of them need due diligence. They need you to go out there and make the test and maintain the water the way it's supposed to be. Now, I wrote a startup program, and I wrote it with Greg Garrett, who was the education chairman for the National Plasterers Council. He was also my partner in the Pool Chemistry Training Institute. And we titled it called the Borate Plaster Pool Startup. And this method is available for free at the Pool Chemistry Training Institute website, pcti.online. pcti.online, and you then go to the heading that says bulletins, and then if you scroll down a little bit, you will see one that says Borate Plaster Startup Guide, and it is a 9-page guide that takes you step by step through exactly what to do on a startup, and it gives you the calculations based on your tests on the water. And then you make the calculation and add that amount of chemical. And when you're done, you will have a written record of how you did it. And this method works. Greg Garrett approved it. It was about to be approved by the National Plasterers Council, but after Greg died, they really didn't have a technical person there that could approve it, so it just kind of languished. But it is available on my website for free for you to browse and look at, or for you to download. And it is, if nothing else, a great way to start up a pool. And if you don't like or want to use borate, you can just skip the borate part where you add it on day one. The rest of it is still a great startup method. And it was such a great method that after Greg using it for about a year in the field, he asked me if I could make an app for it. And it turns out I did, and it actually took me a whole lot longer than I thought, but I made it into an app. And you can get the app for either kind of phone that you have from wherever you buy your apps, from Apple Store or Google Play. You can get it from there for a one-time fee of $9.99, and it takes you through every single day, and it does all the calculations for you. All you need to do is put in the water test results, and it calculates what you need to add to the pool. And you do it the next day and the next day, and then you just keep track of it after that because it's almost a regular pool. But it's a great way to do it. And what we want to do is on day one, we want to get the calcium level in the pool up to a minimum of 150 parts per million. So if you're taking care of pools and you're doing startups, day one is to get calcium hardness to a minimum of 150. It can be 150, 160, 180, 200. It doesn't matter. But as long as it gets above 150. And if it's not, then day one, you bring it up to 150. You adjust pH and alkalinity, and you're pretty much done on day one, because this program even says before you do anything, you test the fill water so you know what you got coming in. And then you can have the proper chemicals there. You can know if there's metals in the water. That's one of the biggest, most important things I tell people about a startup. Test the makeup water. And don't just think that you know about it. Test it. Get your spin touch out or your Taylor test kit and test everything, including metals. And if the total metals, iron and copper, are more than 0.4 parts per million, then you need to add a sequestering agent, or you need to use a pre-filter that takes the metal out of the water before it gets into the pool. And so metals are the biggest problem with a startup pool. And that is that if you get any metal in there, if it's above 0.4, it's going to cause a stain. The plaster is real subject to getting stains when it's brand new. So you need to prevent those stains by getting the calcium level up to 150. And especially down there in Florida, you got alkalinity about 60 or 80 or something, and you got hardness of 50 or 60. And you need to get that up on day one. The only caveat that I'll give you is that on day one, don't put any soda ash or bicarb in at the same time as you add the calcium chloride, the hardness increaser. If you do, it will precipitate out scale all over the whole pool. It'll be really difficult to remove. So don't add them within about 3 or 4 hours of each other. Give them time to react and go to work before you add the other one. So, but and then on day 2, we actually want you to take the calcium level from 150 to 250. And then if it's a plaster pool, which we're assuming it is, on day 3, you take the calcium level to 350. So we want you to get up to 350 by day 3. And when you do that, and if you keep maintaining the pH and alkalinity, you're going to be fine. The pool's going to be great. And a lot of times with a new pool, the pH skyrockets. When you first fill it up, the pH goes up to 8, 9, somewhere like that. And one of the great things about adding borate on day 1 is that the pH doesn't go much over 8 or 8.2 instead of up around 9 or higher. So adding borate is a great thing to do on day 1. If you don't want to do it or can't get it, then okay, just skip it. But we need to get the calcium in there, and we need to come back every day, or at least on day 1 and 2, go there twice in one day. And you need to be brushing the pool. You need to be checking the pH, alkalinity, calcium hardness levels, and make those 3 adjustments. And of course, you don't add any chlorine until you get into day 3 or day 4. Cyanuric acid we put in on day 4. So, and using the liquid cyanuric acid is the greatest way to put that in there. Cyanuric acid doesn't dissolve for about 3 or 4 days. So it can sit on the bottom and cause a problem, or it can sit in the filter and dissolve in there, which is not good either. But if you use the liquid kind, you pour it in and it dissolves right now. And it was a great stuff. It is great stuff. And I know because I invented it. So it's one of the great things that you could use in a pool. So anyway, there are other startup methods in the IPSA book. I actually list 4 startup methods in the IPSA training manual, and you can kind of pick the one you like. But I think the important thing is to follow whatever instructions you want to do. I've talked to a lot of service guys, and unless all they do is startups, doing one of those startups where you have to add chemicals to a barrel and run the rotor through it and make tests and stuff, it just seems to be too much trouble and require too much time for a service tech to do it. But if you're doing startups, you may want to use the app. And of course, the great thing about the app is when you're done, you can save it on your phone, and I've arranged it so you can download it to your computer and save it as a permanent record should you ever get into a dispute with somebody over how the startup method was done, like the plasterer complaining that it wasn't started up right. You can show him what you did. Either method, either with the free method from the website or from the app, you got a permanent record of how you started it up. And that may be a legal important thing at some date in the future.
Especially with those startups, yeah, you want to make sure that you have that. And I did get one picture from a pool guy this week that he didn't do the startup, but it was his pool and they did it, and they brought somebody else to do the startup, and it was completely stained all over the bottom in about 2 weeks. Yeah. He was reaching out. I'm like, don't touch it. Reach back to whoever did the startup and have them go back and kind of address that. Guys,
yeah, I'm a big believer, by the way, and if you've got metals in your incoming water, I am a big believer in using a metal removing filter, a pre-filter that removes the metals before they get into the pool. I think that is a great thing to do instead of just pouring in a bottle of sequestering agent. I just think that as most of you may or may not know, when you put a sequestering agent in the pool, the sequestering agent surrounds the metal so it can't stain. But it's an organic chemical, and it eventually either breaks down or get oxidized by sunlight and chlorine. And when it does, it releases itself from the iron, from the metal, and it's still the metals then can stain in the pool again. So you're not removing the metal when you add a sequestering agent. So if you use a metal remover or one of those bags or cages that you can put in the skimmer, it actually removes the metal from the pool. Okay.
Yep. And those startups are key. And we're talking, there's a couple people here talking about it on our Insta chat, but Leslie's, talking on there going, document everything always. And I think that's a big key, especially when you're doing startups and you're doing weekly.
We gave you a way off the website to do it for free. It's a printed form, and you can show what chemicals you added, the dates you add them, and everything. They're all there. Even keeping track of the water test that you make. There's a place on the form for you to put in the daily water test.
Right. And over here, Zac's mentioning that they just had one that was stained that the startup company did, and they were testing it, and they didn't have any metals, but it looks like they used a sequestering agent. And then obviously, like Bob's mentioning, it fell out. That's a big one. So make sure that you guys document all those. Guys, let's take a quick word from our sponsors. Bob, when I come back, I want to ask you one quick question to follow up on that startup, and we will continue our conversation.
Okay.
The SPPA is dedicated to the niche general liability insurance needs of pool and spa professionals. As industry leaders, we'll fight for you, protect you, and be there for you. We provide extraordinary service before and after the membership and insurance is in effect. Insured members of the program get the best customer support and have peace of mind that their alliance is their voice and always fighting for their program and insurance needs. We proudly insure thousands of pool and spa professionals across the United States. With over 30 years encompassing the pool and spa industry, we know the needs of pool and spa professionals. Through the SPPA program, there are 3 tailored and customized general liability insurance options to pick from. For more information on our programs and insurance options, visit our site at www.thesppa.com. The sound of you continually pitching pool care poles into the trash. The sound of you using an Ultimate Pool Tools carbon fiber pool care pole for years to come. Go to ultimatepooltools.com or Instagram at Ultimate Pool Tools.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking to Bob Lowry today. A couple little disclaimers. We've kind of veered a little bit of our conversation, but great conversation. And then also you might hear a little bit of noise here in the background here and there. So it's just some construction that's going on that we had talked to Bob about, and they couldn't move it. So we apologize for that, but wanted to give that little disclaimer. Bob, I have the same gentleman that sent the question saying, what if you have scale white formation already on a dark plaster pool?
Well, if it's a brand new pool, you pretty much only have one solution. You have to acidify the pool and dissolve that. But and by acidifying the pool, it won't dissolve it like an acid wash does. You could just lower the pH down, and it will obviously, just as if you had a low pH in a pool, it will dissolve part of the pool. And it'll dissolve it uniformly, so it'll take that calcium off of the pool. So, and I would probably drop the pH down to maybe 6 or 6.5, and you can do that. One of the ways that you can do that, by the way, as some of you know, I've developed some apps, and I don't get rich selling apps, but I do make apps that you guys can use that you can't get information anywhere else. And I have an app called the pH Alkalinity Adjustment Tool, and it is $7.99, I think. And it is for adjusting pH and alkalinity, but you can also use it for what I just said. If you want to make the pH in your pool 6.2, you can plug into this app 6.2 and the current conditions in your pool. It'll tell you exactly how much acid to add to that pool to get the pH to 6.2. And so you can do that instead of guessing at what you might need to do that. You run the risk, if you put too much acid in the pool, of zeroing out the alkalinity. And that's dangerous from the standpoint that the water becomes very aggressive. And depending on how much you have, I'm talking to you there in Florida, depending on how much scale you have, that might be just the thing you want to do if you have a lot of it. If you have a lot of scale, zero the alkalinity for a day or two, and probably that's a long enough time for it to redissolve it, and everything will be fine. But alternatively, the only other solution that you have is to drain the pool and give it a light acid wash. And those are the two choices. That's it. So you either do, you acidify the pool, or you drain it and do a light acid wash.
Cool. So before we kind of get into the next question, I want to give a little Pool Nation insider info to our viewers. Believe it or not, we have some form of structure when we do our podcast, even though we kind of veer off and we have fun and we do a lot of, we shoot from the hip on a lot of things and just kind of talk, real talk. When we get a lot of questions, especially when we have Bob on for a podcast, we get tons of questions that get sent, and we try to filter through them and pick which questions to ask Bob when he's on so that we can get those answers, the ones that are going to be most beneficial to everybody. And this week is no different. And Edgar sends us a script, and it kind of tells us, okay, these are the questions that were asked from the viewers, so we can ask Bob. And I didn't really look at the script until, I don't know, like 10 minutes before we got on. And I looked at one of the questions that I was going to ask, and I looked at it, and I'm like, what the hell? I have no idea what it is. So I tried getting back to Edgar to clarify before we got on the podcast, and he didn't respond. So I'm just going to roll with it, and maybe I'm going to learn something today, because I have no idea what this is. I talked to Zac about it. He doesn't have any idea. And maybe Edgar could enlighten us here. But the question is, can you schedule a startup session? And I'm not quite sure what a startup session is. But Edgar, are you there? Can you explain to me what a startup session is?
I'm going to go quiet for like.
Sounds like.
So I put the notes in there because that was the request from the question, and so he said, "Can you schedule a startup session?" And I think one of the things that we keep talking about is a lot of guys struggle with the startup process. So he was kind of asking if we can yeah. And so he was kind of saying, "Can you talk to Bob? Can we kind of schedule a startup session?" That was my bad for not kind of clarifying that. And then he kind of went into the next part of the question, so that's why. So my bad, my apologies. And
no, I think it was good. I was like, man, what's a startup session? I go, wow.
You had him freaked out.
All right. And Zac, I was going back and forth with Zac. I'm like, Zac, what the hell is a startup session?
Well, the National Plasters Council actually has a startup class that they do. And you can go to the NPC website and see wherever they schedule these classes all over. And I don't know now with virtual things if they have a virtual startup or not, but they do have a startup. But realize for a minute that the free startup document that I told you about pretty much follows what NPC does, except I give you all the calculations and a place to put your test results and all that kind of stuff in there. So my startup method and NPCs are very close, except they haven't yet added borate to their startup. But aside from that, the two startup methods are very similar.
For sure.
and I have actually taken the NPC startup document that they have, and I have revised it and sent it back to them, but they did not ask me to do it. I did it out of the goodness of my heart, and updated it for them and sent it to them, and the thing is kind of caught in their committee of people deciding whether they should do it or not do it. So anyway, I did revise their startup method. So I have my own. NPC's got one, and perhaps on some of these individual things like exposed aggregate and stuff like that, those startup methods are much different than regular plaster pool startup or diamond finish or whatever they call it. So
Bob, to kind of segue off that question, the second part to it is there a difference in plaster, fiberglass, or painted pools? We talked about regular plaster, but what would be a fiberglass startup, and what would you do different for a painted pool if you were to start up?
Well, I think, I guess probably the way to say it is for a non-plaster pool, or actually, as my former partner would say, a non-cementitious surface. So if it doesn't contain cement, then that means anything: fiberglass, vinyl, paint, epoxy, stainless steel, whatever, acrylic, whatever. So those type of pools, first of all, we don't want to go to 350 in calcium. There's no need to. And so ultimately the goal is to get to 250. But bear in mind that water treating means that you need to get to 150 parts per million of calcium hardness on day one. And the reason for that is not because of the vessel, it's because of the saturation index. And I'm sorry for the background noise. I can't stop it, and they're drilling something downstairs. I hope it's stopping. But we need to get to 150 for the saturation index. The saturation index is based on calcium carbonate saturation. And if we don't get the calcium saturation, we can't balance the pool. So we need to get to 150 on day one. So the rest of the startup is pretty much the same, except that you're not going to have the pH and alkalinity skyrocketing because of the calcium hydroxide hydration that's in the plaster. So we don't have that contributing to the water. So essentially we put it in and there's no reaction between the water and the vessel. So we can start it up and pretty much after the day one or two, treat it like it's a pool. Although I would still probably not start up a chlorine generator for, I don't know, for some reason they've said 28 days. I guess that's because it works out to being 4 weeks. But 28 days or a month, I wouldn't start it up until I wouldn't start up a chlorine generator until a month has passed. But aside from that, the rest of the startup is the same, except you don't need to go to 350. You just need to go to 250, and you need to be at 150 on day one. Many of the fiberglass surfaces in particular are real susceptible to staining from metals. So again, test the incoming water, and don't just test it, like a month ago. Test it the day or two before you're going to fill the pool. Test the water then and find out what's in it. Because I am finding from a lot of service techs letting me know that the water that they're getting now is different day to day almost in their area. And what's happening is the distribution system for water is very old in a lot of places. And because it's failing, they're trying to keep the pipes and stuff from falling apart. So they're either adding corrosion inhibitors or they're adding acid and stuff to get the scale off the inside of the pipes so they can get more flow. So they're adding various chemicals to the water to preserve their pipes, and none of them are any good for the pool. So you can get a lot of phosphates in incoming water, you can get a lot of metal in incoming water, and you need to be checking that to be sure, and check it the day before it starts to get filled up. And if there's metal, get it out of the pool before you got the water coming in there.
John, I know you were going to ask something.
I was, but I lost I was going to say, Bob said something about the background noise. I go, that was me 2 weeks ago. We were sitting here doing the podcast, and all of a sudden, right out front of my door, there's literally a construction crew with a jackhammer, and they're going, bah, 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 bah. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, there's only so much you can do because
the construction is actually in our house, but the construction here in Peru, the entire house, floors, walls, and everything are built out of concrete and red brick. And so when we want them to put in a new light fixture or an outlet or a switch or something, they have to dig a channel through the wall and put a conduit in there and then cover the wall back up. And we are doing a complete remodel on the first floor and putting in a 1-bedroom apartment on the first floor. So
you know why he's doing that, guys, right? You know why he's putting the bedroom on the first floor?
For our
Zac, John?
The gaming room.
No, it's for my mother-in-law.
Oh, wait a second, Bob. You said that it was so that I could come and visit and I'd have somewhere to stay.
We have a great guest room, and we do have, I have lots of friends, and we do have people coming from the United States, and they come here, they stay with us and use it for a base of operations to go hiking. They go down to see Machu Picchu. They go and see the Nazca lines, which are the great geoglyphs of spiders and stuff like that in the land. They come here and go to Galapagos. And so there's many places, tourist places to come, and they come here and stay with us for a few days and use it for a base of operations. We're only about 20 minutes away from the airport. So people fly in, they stay with us, go away for a few days, come back, go away for a few days and come back, and then stay with us. And my wife loves to cook and entertain people from the U.S. and tell them about Peru.
I don't know if you, John, and Zac just heard what he said, but all I heard was, Edgar, you can come down here. You can use it as a base of operation. You can stay as long as you want. That's why we built the room. Zac, John, you're invited as well.
Yep, for sure.
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering what I'm doing, I'm like all these ruins and things like Bob has it figured out. What are we doing here? We need to get down there.
Yep.
Yeah. And that, Machu Picchu which is on a lot of people's bucket list. Machu Picchu is here. It's about 600 miles away from us, but you can fly here and then fly down to near Machu Picchu and go to Cusco and go to Machu Picchu and then come back in 3 or 4 days. And you can stop at the Nazca lines and see those great geoglyphs that are on the ground and figure those out and come on back and stay a few days and look at Lima and look at some of the great things we have here, and then go to Galapagos and do that, and then come back and stay a few more days and then take off. It's a great thing.
Sounds like we're invited. So count me in, Bob.
You are. You are.
Guys, let's take a quick word from our sponsors. And when we come back, Zac, John, I want to get your final thoughts.
The Hyper Pole from Ultimate Pool Tools is a pool care pole designed by pool professionals for pool professionals, featuring precision crafted carbon fiber and stainless steel construction. Go to ultimatepooltools.com or Instagram at Ultimate Pool Tools. Pool pros have specific needs when it comes to general liability insurance. The SPPA program has you covered. With 3 tailored and customizable general liability options, SPPA makes it easy for pool pros to feel secure. Find out more and get covered at thesppa.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pool Nation Podcast. We're talking to Bob Lowry today. We've kind of had a lot of conversation on pool startups, which is a great thing. And Jeanette over here is saying, well, dang, I put my passport away. So see, Bob, they're just ready. They're just ready to go.
That's it. Well, maybe I have to start a new thing. Maybe have a B&B down here. So I don't know.
There you go. Those Airbnbs are starting to make a fortune. So let's kind of talk about that.
No,
hey,
listen, seriously, hotel rooms are really, really expensive here, which is why we tell people. People call me and say, where should we stay? And I go, at my house. And it's why. And I go, well, because you can buy me dinner in return just to say thank you instead of spending $300 or $400 a night for a hotel.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's $300-$400 a night. That's crazy. That's expensive. Is that for like a high-end hotel or is that?
No, that's just for like the Marriott.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Hey, Zac, let me get your final thoughts.
I wanted to say that story you shared at the beginning was gold. That was really cool to hear. And it's always interesting to hear, people's life's journey and how they did things. And, the last thing I'll say is during this conversation, I had a brilliant idea for the next app. And instead of, hey, Siri, we need, hey, Bob. And then we can ask all of our pool-related questions to the AI, Bob.
Yeah, but
you think that's a good idea?
I wouldn't be able to do these Instagrams and podcasts then. You wouldn't need me.
That's true.
Yeah, right.
So what we do is we trick the app, and then what we do is every time somebody says, hey, Bob, it actually calls Bob, and then Bob has to answer it live.
Yeah. I'll have to figure out for a meter like they do on a taxi every time you call it. It does it. I'll have to get the equivalent of what we used to call a 900 number.
Let's talk chemistry.
Oh my God. So, John, final thoughts.
Well, it's kind of the same with Zac. I mean, I really, really have grown to really, really, really enjoy these podcasts with Bob, and I have a great time listening, to the questions and his answers and the way he goes about it, but plus especially the story. I want to thank you, Bob, for sharing that story. I know it was real personal, and it's something that I didn't know, and I don't know if you've told that story very often, but how cool that was, and how you met your wife, and it's a beautiful thing. You can tell that you guys are obviously soulmates.
We are still in love like the day we met.
Yep.
And
I feel the same way with my wife.
Every day we kiss each other, tell each other how much we love. We've been there 10 years, and I mean, it's a remarkable thing. It really is.
It really is. And it's, not many hopefully many people, but I really don't think many people really have their soulmates that they've met. And the ones that have, though, it's just such a blessing in life. And I can attest to it myself. My wife.
Well, I have to tell you one thing. I have an ex-wife, and we were married for 33 years. And I never had what I have now.
Right.
With a wife of 33 years. I never had that. It's a completely different thing for me to be that much in love and to be that much of a soulmate. It is. It's even, when I look back at it, it's even remarkable to me.
Amen. Edgar, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Listen, we got off topic a little bit today, but and so maybe I've shared a little bit of my personal life with you, which maybe you did or didn't like to hear. Some people don't like to get that close to people, but it humanizes me and lets you know that I'm not just some nerdy chemist sitting in a lab someplace telling you what to do. I've been a pool man. I've been in the Army. I've been a jock. I've been a lot of things, and I'm an expert chemist, and I'm sharing everything with you. And I don't ask you for anything but your attention and some respect.
Cue Edgar. Did we lose Edgar?
Where's Edgar? Did he go away?
We lost Edgar.
I'm sitting here doing the John thing where I'm talking and I look down and the mic is on mute.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, nice going.
I was saying, Bob, I am going to end this podcast here because if I open my mouth, I'm going to ruin the end of this podcast with that final thought that you gave. So that is perfect for our final thoughts. Bob, we really enjoy having you, and your stories are just amazing. And I love hearing your stories. And I know that startups are a big thing for the guys out there. And that was 3 questions that we got this week with regards to startups. And those were some great points. So I want to thank.
Well, and I don't know that there's no magic bullet. I can't just hand you a document or something and say, do this and every pool is going to be perfect. It's not going to be that way. But you do have something to go from, at least that's in print, that you can follow. And it's not a video that you have to try to remember what they said. It's printed, it's on there, it's free. Try it.
Yes, absolutely. So guys, you can go, you can check those out and keep digging into those startups. I know they kind of get tricky here every once in a while with certain things that happen, but experience and education will get you there. So guys, I want to thank you for your time. Zac, John, Bob, I really want to thank you for your time, for your stories, and we will talk next week. Bye, guys.
Okay. So
Bye, guys.
long, or as they say, ciao from Peru.
From Lima, Peru. Bye, guys. Have a great one.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to the Pool Nation Podcast, a member of the Pool Nation family. You can listen to us live every Friday here at 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central, and 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. You can find us at Pool Nation or poolnationpodcast.com, on Facebook, or on Instagram at pool.nation. And to find more info about Pool Invoice, the billing software built specifically for the pool industry, go to poolinvoice.com. Before you go, this is what the pool industry has been waiting for. Poolmanuniversity.com. It's the first platform dedicated to learning the swimming pool service and repair industry. A full service community where you can connect and find videos on business, service, water chemistry, and repairs. See you there at poolmanuniversity.com.
Pool Nation, all rights reserved. No part of this podcast may be reproduced in a verbal or nonverbal way. May not be distributed. It may not be distributed in any social media platforms or transmitted in any other forms or any other means, including recording or other electronic or mechanical methods without the prior written permission of Pool Nation.